Hey everyone, welcome to this well-connected TV interview. My name is Joe Rignola, your host, and today I'm joined by my buddy Brian Vaszily. Hey Brian, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Joe, it's great to be here, man. Thank you.
Sure, no problem. Gosh, lots to talk about today. You've got a new event coming up called Younger Longer, which I'm excited to talk about. We'll definitely get into that. But before we go down that rabbit hole, for folks who may not know who you are, what is it that got you started in this health and wellness? Gosh, you've been in it for like what, 2 decades or so, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to age you there.
Well, hopefully I look younger and it stays that way longer. Speaking of,
You
so
don't look the
but
same the
yeah, I've
first
been.
time.
Uh, I guess you could say, yeah, veteran, natural health researcher, advocate. Man, I was, in all this. I actually started way back when. With a doctor that nobody knew then, at least, called Joe Mercola, and it was he
Oh,
and
wow.
I, and kind of put him on the map, or helped put him on the map, and that was back when a lot of people didn't even, know what natural health was, or they were very resistant to the concept, and it was quackery and all this stuff, and
Mhm.
so the early days were interesting days, and but I saw through research of, that really wasn't getting all that much exposure even way back then, the great immense value in what we call in one big encompassing term, natural health.
Yeah.
Um, but my own path in, so, I'm the founder of the Art of Anti-Aging. And yeah, you mentioned this big summit we have coming up online, Younger, Longer, the Insiders Health Summit. And this summit that's coming up is really, truly the pinnacle of everything that I've been doing for decades now, and all of these wonderful folks like yourself and MDs and doctors out there who are all in this space, so to speak. And I can give you, I'll try to give you the short version of the
Sure.
story about how I led to where I'm at right now, if you
Yeah,
want.
I'd love to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Art of Anti-Aging. So not anti in the sense of against getting older, because that's impossible. We're all getting older, but against all of these myths, Joe, out there that really weigh on people. We could dive deeper into that too. But what I mean is there's this widespread joke, for example, that goes that, oh, once you're hit 40, you're over the hill, right? The problem is that is really a widespread mentality out there, and it's foisted on people through the media and in so many different ways. And so you get this message, that once you hit your 40s and certainly your 50s, 60s, 70s and beyond, it is all downhill and you're doomed to suffering and disease and all this nonsense. And
You're depressing,
long
Brian.
story short, brother, what I saw over the years is the exact opposite is true. These ought to be the middle years and golden years, let's call them, the best years of people's lives, including in a health perspective. Now, we all know, you certainly know, that in terms of longevity, we are meant to live, considerably longer than the averages out there, and we're meant to live well, which is a kicker, the key point on all this. So let me jump back in my own life real briefly for you. So I'm to answer your question, I'm about to turn 51, or maybe there is an inherent question there. And for the first half, you could say pretty much right down the middle almost of my life was really rough, really rough. I have no problem talking about this today. My heart has forgiven long ago, but I was abused, by an alcoholic father when I was younger. He was a good man until I was around the age of 9, and then he turned severely alcoholic and very abusive to me and my mom and my sister. And so, for quite some time, those were rough years. Then, to his credit, he did kick the alcohol habit, but he spent basically 10 years dying a horrible death from a number of different diseases and in and out of hospitals. We basically spent half our lives, at hospitals with my dad, it felt like. And, I saw the medical system at that point, we're talking now back in the late 80s, early 90s, kind of from the inside perspective, and all of, there's good and there's good people. So I don't want to give the impression, but there's also a lot of backwardness and a misimpression about what health should be. And I had that learning early on. Anyway, back to my own life, so there was that. I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood in Chicago. I lost friends to gangs. Gangs were trying to recruit me, all kinds of stuff. When my dad finally was on his deathbed dying, I was very young myself. I was still 20. I got a girlfriend pregnant, just to be straight about it. And, wonderful human being, but way too young to get married, but got married for all the wrong reasons. Now today, my oldest son out of 4 kids is 29, 39, and he's truly a best friend. So, that's the result of that at the end of the table is, a wonderful, wonderful human being, my oldest son. But rough years there too, because I was dirt poor. I was living with my wife at the time and my baby, and sleeping on a mattress on a floor where mice were visiting my face at night. And I was selling my CD collection just to keep my heat on another month. Point is, went through a lot early in life.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason I went through depression, anxiety issues, and other things. The only reason, Joe, that I'm even talking to you today is women. Powerful, wonderful women who stood by me, guided me, through all of that, including a wonderful mother, sister, certain teachers that I had who all happened to be women. And, so I was grateful. They saved my life, to be honest about it. That's another long story, but I'll sum it up with that, Joe.
Yeah.
So years go by. Now I enter, the natural health world after being, by the way, inside of the corporate pharmaceutical world, where I saw it all from the inside very early on in my life and career. And I saw and I heard some things. And, when people, if they do decide to sign up for Younger Longer, I'll share a joke. And it's not a funny joke at all, this one, right after people sign up. And I just urge them to listen to that, because that's a true story. When if they do decide to sign up, Joe, to Younger Longer, right after you sign up, is a short video. And I share what I'm talking about. I won't do justice to it here, but it's a joke I heard from executives inside, let's just say, the drug industry. And it really is telling. So anyway, I left all that. And, I did happen to respond to a request from this guy named Joe Mercola way back when. Now you're talking 20 some years. Nobody knew who he was, a small handful of people. And he asked me, hey, can you help me? I want to put this message out to the world. And I was like, man, you got something here. It seems a little, some of it crazy or whatever, but the more I started to dig into all the insights and stuff, I was like, there's something here. Let's do this. So years go by, I helped him, and then I left him. I helped plenty of other people early on. Dr. Mark Hyman, I helped him with his first book in some ways, and so on and so forth. And it builds and builds and builds as the years go on. Now I start noticing that as my own mother and sister and these other very important, strong people who saved my life literally are getting older, this big notion out there that getting older equals becoming undesirable and incapable and doomed to suffering and disease and over the hill was even impacting them. And I'm like, man, that doesn't match up, Joe. That does not match up. That big idea out there that youth is the be all and end all, youth in a sense of being 21, but when you hit 40 and 50 and 60, it's the end. And it doesn't match up with the reality I was seeing, right, from all these doctors and researchers. And I'm like, man, I know what I've got to do. So I launched, long story short, the Art of Anti-Aging. And the mission there, real short, is to help people bypass all those myths and all the toxic so-called solutions, which are really non-solutions that come with those aging myths, certain types of unhealthy foods that are being pushed on people, and certainly this drug and pharmaceutical mindset that equals health, all these, it's to help people bypass that and instead be empowered with the most effective steps to look and feel their best now, avoid, even overcome disease, and live long doing it. So that's what led me here today. And this summit now is kind of the pinnacle of all that. So
love it. Love it. And it sounds like, you and I have some similar stories, similar backgrounds. I'm getting into this space, a little over 10 years ago, just dealing with my own health and dealing with, depression and being on antidepressants and digestive issues and being 50 pounds overweight and things like that. So, I hear similar stories, but I really love the message that you have with just empowering people, particularly women. I love it. I think it's so important. I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball of a question here, just because you mentioned it. You talked about your childhood a little bit. How important do you think it is for people to deal with some childhood trauma, whether it's, a massive trauma or something, that seems in hindsight, maybe relatively small, in overall health and wellness and longevity? How important do you think it is for people to really look at some of the traumas and deal with some of the traumas of childhood?
Yeah, real short answer on that, massively important. Let me tell you. So in in my events, I have 22 really top-notch doctors, MDs, and researchers in this event. They're going to reveal their most effective steps of all to live long and well. But in between each of those, I guess you could say, Joe, I'm known for giving a lot of insights, even before that, before the interview begins, and then after the next one, in between each, and at the end of the day. And one of the things at the end of every single day of the 7 days of this summit I'm doing is asking a life-changing question, I call it.
Mm-hmm.
Big statement, I know. But where I'm going with that in answer to your question is, for years in there, I was also a life and health coach. And I gained some pretty, strong renown, I guess we'll say. I did a lot of media appearances. I had a big book out of all that. And I worked one-on-one and, studied this stuff deeply, worked with well-known therapists and all kinds of stuff. And what you just hit on is one of the key aspects in order to live long and live well is dealing with that. One of the big questions, okay, I already know I'm going to be bringing this specific one up in the summit, but one of the big questions that I ask people to explore, and this was such a powerful question with individual clients of mine. So what I'm doing in the Younger, Longer event is choosing the most powerful questions like that, along the very lines of what you just brought up, that I would ask everybody to consider for themselves are, what stories might you be living that are getting in the way of experiencing your best health and your best life right now? And in general, when people hear something like that, their minds might quickly go somewhere, or they'll hear that interesting and then move on in their lives. I will beg people listening right now, because I know you care and I care, explore that question, because there are stories that are implanted in us from youth forward too, by the way, not just youth. It can happen at any age, but they tend to really accumulate when we're so impressionable in our younger years. Now, I went through some extreme circumstances with the abuse and stuff like that. But most of the time for most people, it might not be that cataclysmic, Joe, but it still has a mighty influence. What stories are you living today that might not be so helpful to your health and well-being? So what I mean is, let's take our mission at the Art of Anti-Aging. This big story out there, Joe, is that when you get older, hey, you're going to get unhealthy. You're going to get sick. You're going to have bad joints. All these things are going to happen. You're going to become unattractive. You're going to become frail. And that's all nonsense. But the mind and this belief is such a powerful thing that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so many people, and this message is especially hitting women the hardest, as you noted, and I see it more so even with women than men. Even despite themselves, people take that to heart and they believe that, frankly, nonsense in that case. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so it is with messages and stories and things that we lived when we were younger, traumas that we lived when we were younger. If someone repeatedly told us we're not going to amount to much, there's two paths with that. Either you amount to an incredible amount, as we all should, because we're all such wonderful, valuable human beings, but those who don't properly deal with that story over and over believe it here, deep down, and they live it, and they don't, quote unquote, amount to much, even though they ought to, and they're capable of doing so.
Such a powerful message. And I can't, I'm just going to reiterate, really sit with that question, because, as I talk to people and coach people, those stories are real powerful. And you don't even, a lot of times you don't realize that your subconscious is sort of getting this message. And if you can really analyze that and separate yourself from that story and say, hey, wait a minute, is that true or not? Yeah. Most of the time it'll say it's not true, realize it's not true, and you can make up a whole new story. And
that's really the beauty of it. You could change the story,
exactly.
And I do. Again, I really urge people to take the time to just examine every single story in their life, frankly, and say, is that valuable? Is that helping me or hurting me? This belief I have, in a sense of what I am, what I'm supposed to be, all this stuff, because you will see that can typically be even far more helpful than even the best health advice in terms of food and other aspects that anyone can give you, is working
Sure.
on those sorts of things. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I know during the event you talked about you like to give tips and some insights in between the interviews, and I know you're really good at providing a lot of value and content. One of the other things that I really admire is just the way you conduct the interviews. There's something about your interaction with your guest, the way you frame up the questions. You really seem to be able to draw out some of the best information from your experts. So that's why I'm really looking forward to this summit. But let's, over the past 20 or so years you've been in the space, like what's some of your own unique, powerful tips that you can offer? Because I really want to try and bring as much value as I can to the people watching.
Oh, yeah.
So
Well, wow, we could take that in so many directions, Joe, because there's so many, so many wonderful things. And honestly, what's exciting and also kind of infuriating sometimes is that, people don't know so much of these. There's a small handful of concepts, I guess we'll say, out there that always seem to, get the spotlight. And they're in all the emails that people get, and they're in all the events, and they're in newsletters and your Costco magazine, if you get it, and all that stuff. And then there's this huge batch of knowledge that just doesn't get any spotlight. So I appreciate you saying that, first of all, about my abilities with interviewing. That's nice to hear that. And I always say, listen, there's only, as far as I know about myself, there's only one single gift I actually really have, and that's empathy. And that, I hope, is the reason, because I really truly can, even sometimes despite myself, Joe, feel people and the need and all that type of stuff. So, I can't claim to be great at anything else, but that's just one thing that I know I've got. So appreciate you saying that. And so from my perspective, all of these health advice can be boiled down to what are you allowing inside of your being? That one key question right there. And that means, what are you, and I didn't just say body, I'm saying your being. What are you allowing inside, and what are you keeping out or trying to extract? And if you can just frame your health and life from that single question, and then kind of go down and a list of things, you will see, no matter who you are, that there are certain things you are allowing inside your being that are not actually good for you. And again, that means maybe through your mouth, through your skin, through your brain, through your ears. And then there are certain things that you ought to allow in that you aren't doing yet. And then there are various things that are already in that you might want to work on extracting, and that's kind of just, what I've seen over the years. If nobody, you didn't make me do it. You didn't make me say, give me the one statement. But if I was, forced into that, I would say that's the key question. So I could take that in so many directions, but I have, I've changed over the years. I used to believe that, and again, there's these extremes, and that's not how life and health is. It doesn't have to be that way. But again, is it more about what you're not putting inside of you yet that you ought to be? Certain foods. Now, a lot of people mostly focus on eating healthy as if that's the be all and end all. I will never discount it, because it is super important. But I have noticed I'm a research geek, and as I research and I talk to all these MDs and all these super famous researchers behind university walls and stuff, I have seen increasingly that it's what today you keep out of your body, that from a pure physical and therefore emotional, because we're holistic beings aspect, Joe, is super critical. We are not designed, no matter how properly we eat, no matter how properly we drink, enough water and do whatever we're supposed to do, we are not designed to fight the amount of toxins that are invading our bodies today on a daily basis. We are just not equipped to do that, no matter how optimal our health is, because there's this overwhelming barrage these days from every single direction of toxins from everything. Small example, a lot of people don't think that comes to mind is I can go micro specific on you, and I will here. A big one is a printer in your office. And I think I thought of that because I've got one like way over there on the other side of the office by intention. Printers seem like innocent. You don't even think about them. A lot more people today than ever are working at home, though. And if you work in an office, this is clearly important too. But they emit an amazing amount of these microscopic particles that are really bad for your lungs, really bad for your health overall. You don't want to have something like that located close to where you spend a lot of time, like I am right now sitting at my desk, and you are too. We don't see it, but it's, and that's just one teeny tiny example, Joe, of all these things around us constantly that are hitting us with toxins way more, than at any time in human history by far. Inside, outside, anywhere we go, inside our vehicles, all of these man-made products, they come with a nasty downside, no matter how much convenience they might provide us. And that's the biggest one. More and more will be coming out on this. I guarantee you over the next 5-10 years, but you're hearing a lot already. I'm sure you are, because you're,
sure,
also a big time researcher like me. But yeah, I can give you more on that front too. If you want.
That's interesting. I want to ask about the printer, because I asked for unique, but that is definitely something I hadn't heard before.
Yep.
My printer's sitting on usually at the opposite corner that I'm in my room, so that's good. But the particles, is that coming? Are those particles kind of coming off the machine when it's in use?
Yeah, even when it's not in use, certainly when it is in use, but even when it's not. And I'm not talking, you have to be concerned. You've heard about EMFs, I know, and all this other stuff from other types of devices. But a printer, it depends on what kind of printer you have too, by the way. There's some that are more and less, but it emits these particles that are 2.5 microns in size. And it not as much when it's not in use, but of course it still is in a small way. And it's yeah, I'm glad we're hitting on this, because it's just an example, like I said, Joe, of these things around, the furniture in your home, certain types of compressed artificial, truly what it is, wood, emit VOCs and formaldehyde and these sorts of things, and the carpeting and the flooring and so on and so forth. It can feel overwhelming and even kind of depressing to some people to hear all this, because it's like, my God, it's everywhere. Well, it is. And it's not about, hey, don't worry. The last thing I want people to do is like worry and feel like either A, I give up, or B, I have to go live in a cave. That's not the solution. The solution is just take it step by step in your life. Now, there are some, and I've identified these in my own life and shared this, with our audience at the Art of Anti-Aging, is there are some that are worse than others, some types of products that are worse than others. Like printer, the easy solution with that one, don't get rid of your printer, just locate it like I have it on, in my case, and I might even move it further, but clear on the other side of the office or in another room, something. Just don't be next to it is really, the key with that one. But there are far more concerning toxins, for example, in cosmetics. This is another key tip. I'll present it in kind of an unusual way, which is this: when you go to the grocery store or, the big box store, wherever you might shop in person, and you're pushing that grocery cart down that cosmetic and beauty care products, personal care products aisle, don't think of it as cosmetics and personal care products. Think of it as food, because you're pushing your grocery cart down a food aisle in those aisles. Because anything that you apply to your skin, for example, and that's the worst, is anything you put on your skin. But we're even talking about, things you wash your hair with, anything you put near your body, but especially those you're applying right on your body, is largely, not entirely, but largely consumed by your body. In other words, it's food. It's food, and it's designed to be consumed by your body. In fact, a lot of the artificial chemicals they put in are called penetrators that are designed to take the other ingredients and send them even deeper into your skin. And what happens is, in some cases, I would rather eat some of these toxins, these synthetic, by mouth, than apply them to my skin. Why? Because when you eat something, your body has a good fighting chance of eliminating some of those toxins still via your liver and other, cleansing mechanisms in place in our body. When you apply it to your skin, just like if you breathe it in, that's those two are the worst. There's no barrier in, there's no liver in the way. It can go, and often does go, straight into your bloodstream and is sent around your body, and it slowly accumulates in the organs throughout your body. So it's food that you are eating when you put any kind of cream or what have you on your skin, which is why I advocate to people, please try to look for USDA certified organic and other as clean as possible type of such products, whether it's anti-aging creams or deodorants or anything like that. Please, please, please do. This has not gotten enough spotlight yet. It'll be coming out more and more over the next few years, just like food did 10, 15 years ago. And so this is one thing I strongly advocate to people. Let me put it this way. If you live in the United States, take this advice times 10 to the 10th power, because here let me frame it this way. For example, in the European Union, Joe, 1,300 plus chemicals have been banned from cosmetics and personal care products. Here in the United States, just 11 ingredients have been banned. Just 11. Now, the average woman, the latest statistics I saw on this were that the average woman uses 12 personal care products of some sort or another per day, of which there are 168 different chemicals on average that she is feeding her skin. That is scary. And I will say one more thing about this. I'll give you the real short version. If you think, you being any of us, that somebody is watching out for this and they wouldn't allow this bad stuff in, really? Nonsense. There's been no law on this really passed since 1938. And that is when the FDA basically said, hey, personal care products and cosmetics industry, you're on your own, self-regulate. And it hasn't changed since. You can literally load a product, deodorant, with whatever you want, stick it on a shelf and sell it today. And there is very, very little research done on these ingredients. And the research that has been done has shown that there's over, 200 endocrine or hormone disrupting chemicals commonly used in these cosmetics. There's known carcinogens, formaldehyde's a big one, and it's all over the place in so many of these things, which has been linked strongly to cancer and what have you. So again, I would say to people, man, if nothing else, focus on first eliminating those things that you're literally feeding onto your skin, and try to shift away, and then make changes elsewhere, Joe, in your life, in other areas. I think that's more urgent than, I guess, switching your couch, because although people do spend time sitting on a couch, but still you're not feeding it directly to your skin. So you just want to prioritize things and take them step by step. Worrying about the stuff, last thing I'll say to any open questions or anything from you, is worrying about this stuff can be worse than the effect of it all combined anyway. So please don't sit there and freak out about all these things. Just take it step by step. Whatever you hear in Younger Longer that resonates with you, take it step by step and implement in your life. And any step you take is a great improvement, and you'll benefit from it.
Well, that's thank you for that. I mean, I think that's really important to point that out, that we're certainly not trying to scare anyone or alarm anyone, but really just bring awareness to some of these things. And to the extent that you can make some changes, then that's going to be of benefit to anyone. Talk a little bit, if you can mention, maybe if someone's maybe unfamiliar with the cosmetics and the skincare, what are some things that a couple of things that maybe they should be on alert for? What should they be looking for? Is there a resource that they can find that would help them sort of distinguish what's good from bad?
Yeah, I get that question all the time, and people do like their list of the top 10 and ingredients and things to avoid and all of it. Let me tell you something. There are thousands of chemicals allowed in these products. And so if you're going to try to verse yourself on, unfortunately it's this way, on what to avoid, what to look for when you turn that label around, it's a hard road. because because there are so many ingredients that are allowed. Again, 1,300 chemicals banned in the EU, and more, all the time. Here, just 11. It's an industry that's very powerful, let's just say. That said, I mean, you're going to want to watch out for, like I said, formaldehyde. But the problem here, Joe, is that you're not even going to see some of these ingredients, because one ingredient, I will say this right now, I'll answer this question at least with this, and then I'll give some other perspective on that. But one ingredient to really watch out for is fragrance, otherwise sometimes called perfume, if you're trying to make it sound fancy, or scent. But what that means is it can contain any amount of chemicals that company that made that product so chooses to put in there. They don't have to disclose what it is because it's protected as a kind of like the equivalent of a copyright, that specific scent that they've got. So they will hide and have a lot of nasty. I mean, the EWG, the Environmental Working Group, did expose, that it contained a lot of endocrine disrupting chemicals in that one name, fragrance, and a lot of potentially carcinogenic ingredients and other irritants and allergens and all types of stuff. So if you're looking and you see parfum, scent, and especially as most commonly fragrance, I would say run the other way. Put that back and run the other way. But bigger picture than that, this is where I hope, that here in the United States and in the world, things increasingly go is, some type of very official imprint, to watch for. But today in the United States, from what I've seen, from what I know, and I've certainly researched this, USDA certified is applied to certain products, again, anti-aging products and deodorants and soaps and things like that, of that nature. It's applied to them, and it's one of the most trustworthy because it's a very strict independent certification. So you're not necessarily, you're not going to have toxic product ingredients in that, and even the ingredients that are in that, for that truly to be USDA certified organic, even the ingredients that are in had to be raised in an organic way, like on a farm where pesticides and herbicides are grown. So it's a pretty strict certification. Certain states have their own equivalent. If you live somewhere else in the world, some countries have equivalent. There's EcoCert in France, for example, which is very similar to USDA certified. So what I say to people is look at the back. If there's a ton of foreign sounding, like science projects ingredients, if you see fragrance on there, and if you turn around and it only says things, promotional sounding things like, organic or wild crafted or natural is that doesn't mean anything. In fact, sometimes you want to run the hardest from those because anybody could say, I could put one organic ingredient in a product that has 50 synthetic and I can call it organic. And this happens all the time. Or I can have a product that does not contain parabens, which is, kind of sort of a nasty one to watch out for, but it has, PEGs and formaldehyde and a million other things in it, but I can say paraben free on the label and people will say, oh, that's good. No, it's not. Watch for these independent certifications, certainly non-GMO as well. And that's the healthiest thing that you can do. If a company has, I'm sorry to be so abrupt about this, but if a company did not go through the steps to get these independent of their own company certifications, usually there's a reason. So that's why for me, it's just important, to try to watch for these certifications because it's a wild west out there, and that's the safest, securest thing you got with that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been guilty of it myself. You go to Whole Foods or any kind of store, and you find some sort of skincare that's wrapped in burlap and has some green label on it and says paraben free, and it looks great, and then you get it home and it's got some other nasty stuff in it. So it's worth it to flip the bottle over and really take a look at what's in there. So that's great. I want to do some rapid fire stuff. We'll see if we can get some fun questions in there. But first, let's talk a little bit more about the summit you have coming up, Younger Longer. You've got 22 experts this time around.
That's correct. Well, technically 23 because I've got a duo,
nice.
that come packaged together. That's Robbie Barbaro, the they're well known and awesome guys. Hold on. I'm sorry. I like to have fun too. So I'm not promoting a book. I'm not promoting anything here, but it's a great book. But it's Cyrus and Robbie Barbaro, and these guys. You probably heard of them, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and they're really smart guys. I mean, like wow, smart guys, and they focus more than just diabetes and pre-diabetes. By the way, what they're covering. I mean, I've been talking a lot to them about their most effective steps that they're going to reveal. And they're covering stuff that's just so fundamental to avoiding any of these chronic diseases out there. I don't know how I just got excited because I recently talked to them, but yeah, 22 total expert interviews, we'll say 23 technically, if you count those two guys together.
Yeah. Awesome. And when does that event start?
January 20th. It starts 7 days. So January 20th to the 26th.
Awesome. So there'll be a link right below this video. And you can click that link and you can register and you'll be able to actually watch that for free, right? For those 7 days?
Yes, you can watch the whole thing for free.
Fantastic. All right, let's do a couple of quick rapid fires. Just your hot takes on some of these things. I'm just going to kind of make it up as I go along. Sure. Intermittent fasting.
What about fasting?
Intermittent fasting.
My take on it?
Yeah.
It's interesting because that's coming up, a couple points. Again, I've talked to these experts in the summit too, and it can have immense benefits. Again, I like to be real world with people and that's been first of all, fasting is the norm, by the way. It's funny because a lot of people think this is some new thing or something that came out of nowhere or, some fad or whatever. No, it's not. This is the way most people throughout eons have lived. So it's our natural state. We live in a state that's not natural by having such an abundance of food. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of doing it wrong. Intermittent fasting is the norm. So that's my comment on it is it's probably wise to go back a little toward what our bodies know and work best with, which is not always having food, 3 times a day, 6 times a day, whatever people are doing, and to have some of that. So,
yeah. All right. Detox programs.
Okay, most are total crap. Sorry to be so blunt about it, but I just want people to know that I've studied the heck out of that. Mm-hmm. The best detox program I could tell you, like I said, is real short version of it is increasingly avoid the products that are causing the toxicity in the first place and optimize your body. That doesn't mean they all are garbage, by the way. I don't want to get caught. There are some that are wise, that are smart, that are sensible, that don't over advertise it themselves as changing your life overnight. If you see that, no, run the other way. But there are some very good ones out there that utilize a lot of research-based principles. Most don't. Again, I would position my answer to that as if it seems too good to be true, Joe, it is. Okay, but any that you are designed to eliminate toxins. You want to optimize your body to fight toxins as best as possible. But like we talked about earlier, there's an overabundance out there, so reduce the toxic exposure in the first place.
Awesome. All right, let's go a different direction. What are your thoughts on self-help gurus?
I love that. I love this guy. It's funny because I told you I was a life health wellness coach, and I was some very prominent people, and I was starting to get that label years ago. Mm-hmm. And that's part of what I didn't like the label, to be honest with you. I don't know, it depends on the who. Again, I'd say 80%. Again, I hope I can use this word, but are garbage, not as human beings. I mean, don't get me wrong, but what I'm saying is it's a lot of reprocessed, same old, or worse. But there are a handful of wonderful, people who got that label applied to them, but they have some profoundly important insights to share that can help people past, certain emotional blocks, which of course are physical blocks. Mm-hmm. So if we had another hour here, I would tell you some of my, a few at least of my favorites, but that's my short answer on it. It's just like anything. There's some worth and there's plenty that's not so worthwhile in that space.
Got it. All right. One more. Your thoughts on meditation?
In my own way, I meditate almost every day. Sometimes multiple times a day, depending on need. So I thoroughly believe it. In my case, I'm a nature meditator. I'm a tree lover. And so that's where I go and I meditate out in the trees that are, outside, fortunately in my situation right now, I came from the nitty gritty, dirty, neighborhoods in the cities where I wasn't really able to do that sometimes. So I'm happy now that I'm out by trees. But yeah, it's a powerful way to health and inner peace and happiness and all that stuff that's associated with it. It's true.
Love it.
Mhm.
Great stuff, Ryan. I appreciate it so much. Again, the summit is Younger, Longer. You can get more information right below this video. And I really, really highly recommend people register to watch that. It's going to be amazing. Brian, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
That was awesome, Joe. Appreciate it.